Today I will show you a scribble technique that is perfect for achieving super detailed drawings, but I warn you it's a very time-consuming technique, so don't attempt this if you have no patience. The pens I'm using are Unipin Finelines. I love this brand. The ink doesn't run out too fast and the tips don't wear down really quickly, and also they're not super expensive. The Copics are also great because you can get them in really small sizes like 0.05, which is great for lighter, smaller detailed areas. As you can see, I've got a lot of the same size pen. This is because they're still useful when the ink starts to run out. It allows me to achieve different tones if I have some pens that are less inky than others, because the less inky ones are good for the lighter areas and the more inky ones are great for the darker areas. For this demonstration, I'm going to use a 0.1 size. We will draw a sphere, but be sure to work reasonably small because, as I mentioned before, this is a very slow technique and anything too large is going to take you a very long time to complete. So this technique is not a cross-hatching technique where you use straight lines. It's more of a figure 8 motion, but you want to work fast and not too controlled. Smaller marks for detailed areas are better. You can hold your pen on its side to slow down the flow of the ink, or if you want to achieve a darker application, simply hold your pen vertical. I'm going to start in the darker area and slowly work my way over to the lighter area. I do this to let the ink flow slow down a bit, but also to avoid losing my light area too soon. I don't want to work in with the dark and accidentally go over that light section that I want to keep white. Remember to hold your pen on more of an angle as you start to progress over to the lighter areas as you draw. You can see as I'm working that sometimes the ink doesn't actually mark the page. It's not a solid figure 8. Don't be bothered by this. Don't worry if the ink isn't coming out perfectly. It's actually a good thing because it makes the lines broken and less obvious. So it kind of helps the lines to blur together more. So I'm working around the curved edge, following its contour. My form that I'm working with is circular, so I need to follow that shape. If I don't do this, it will end up with something like this. It's just a tonal scale that's sitting within a circle. I want my form to look three-dimensional, therefore I need to work around the edges, follow its actual form, instead of going dark, medium, light, white like this. I want to go dark, medium, light, white like this in order to create that three-dimensional impression. I've just adjusted my camera because it was going out of focus as I was working, so apologies for the change in view. You can see I'm actually moving my hand pretty quickly and trying not to overthink the pattern that I'm making as I'm making these marks. If I put this in slow motion, it is a bit random, so you're not aiming for a perfect figure 8 motion when you're working. Just a reminder, as you're working, remember to make the surface area of each sort of figure 8 shape smaller if you are drawing in a lighter tonal area. The smaller your marks are, the more detail you will be able to achieve, and therefore the more realistic your drawing will look. When you've finished it, it will sometimes look like you've created the artwork using lots of little dots, which is actually called pointillism. Sometimes when I'm working, I do like to actually stare at the image in a way that kind of makes the drawing look out of focus. This is a little tip that I give to my students, because by blurring my vision a little bit, I can see how it might look from a distance, and I can look for areas that stand out that are maybe unblended or they're just a little bit too obvious. So I'm imagining how it would look if I was standing far away by blurring my focus. As I get to the lighter area, I can either switch to a lighter pen that has a little bit less ink, or as you can see, I'm going to start to tilt the pen a little bit more so that the angle is going to slow down the flow of the ink. If you really want to be super over the top when you're working, you can go back in and make marks anywhere that you feel looks a little bit uneven, which I will do if I want to be super detailed. I want a crazy amount of detail. I want it really realistic, but it's a little bit over the top, so you probably don't need to do that. That's probably pushing it a little bit too far at this point if you're just learning. Now you'll see I'm working in layers. Always, always, always work in layers. Don't try to create dark tones quickly. It looks much nicer if you can build it up slowly, and you can achieve the same tone, but all of the little white gaps that are usually in between your marks will just look so much nicer because they'll be more subtle, because there's those layers of those sort of lighter marks underneath. You're not just having obvious white gaps in between your mark making. I'm starting to let the ink flow a little bit more now as I do the edge, and as I come away from the edge, I'm slowly tilting my pen more and more, again to help that ink slow down and lighten the marks as I get towards the lighter area. I'm defining the edge more now. Sometimes I may just do a little circular loopy marks if I want to be a little bit more controlled in this sort of an area. And remember, as you're working, please build it up slowly, don't rush it. You can achieve a really realistic look with this technique if you work slowly. Obviously, the more you fuss over it, the more realistic it can look, but also you don't want to overwork it and end up losing your contrast. So just be a little bit careful with that. I just decided to add a really rough shadow in because I know you guys are probably getting bored and you probably understand the technique by now, so I've just whacked a bit of a shadow in there. I hope you guys really enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it has helped you to understand my scribble technique, and go ahead, have a go, try it out, see if you like it, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much. See you next time.